The Day Aliens Discovered Earth. The Planet Where Apex Predators Hunt Apex Predators. Part 1. First Contact. Commander Zartul floated before the massive viewing screen aboard the exploration vessel Stellar Seeker. His four eyes blinked in sequence as he studied the blue-green planet turning slowly on its axis. The third planet of this unremarkable yellow star system had appeared ordinary in initial scans. Now, after closer examination, his scientific team was reporting anomalies that defied explanation. "Commander, you requested a full bioscan report," said Science Officer Kelvon, approaching with a data tablet in one of his 6 limbs. Zartul turned, his scaled skin reflecting the soft blue light of the command deck. "Yes. These readings cannot be correct. Please explain." Kelvon's inner eyelids flickered nervously. "The readings are accurate, Commander. We have triple-checked. This planet has an extraordinary biodiversity rating, with predator species in nearly every habitat zone. But the most unusual finding is the dominant species." The science officer tapped the tablet, and the main screen shifted to show various images captured by their drones. The images showed bipedal creatures moving across different landscapes of the planet. "These are the dominant life forms? They appear fragile," Zartul noted, mandibles clicking softly in contemplation. "Yes, and that is the puzzle. They should not be dominant. They lack natural weapons, have no protective hide, possess only modest strength, and reproduce slowly. Yet they have spread to nearly every habitat on the planet." Zartul moved closer to the screen. "Perhaps they avoid the predator zones?" "No. Commander, that is what makes no sense." Kelvon changed the display again. "They deliberately enter areas with apex predators. Look here." The screen showed a recording of 2 humans walking through dense forest. They carried strange tools and moved with purpose. "What are they doing?" asked Zartul. "They appear to be tracking one of the large predator species native to this northern forest region. Our drones followed them for 6 planetary rotations. They were not fleeing from the predators, they were hunting them." Zartul's scales shifted color slightly in surprise. "Impossible. No species hunts apex predators. The energy expenditure and risk make it evolutionarily unsound. Nevertheless, it is happening across the planet. These creatures, they call themselves humans in their various languages, seek out dangerous species." The science officer displayed more images. Humans in small floating vessels pursuing massive water predators, humans on elevated platforms waiting for large forest creatures, humans with primitive projectile tools stalking creatures with natural weapons many times more deadly than their own. "This defies all known patterns of evolutionary behavior," Zartul said. "Contact the homeworld. This discovery warrants immediate attention from the Galactic Science Council." Meanwhile, on the planet below, Lisa Monroe adjusted her backpack and checked her GPS coordinates one more time. The Montana wilderness stretched around her in every direction, pine trees swaying gently in the early morning breeze. She had been tracking this particular wolf pack for 3 weeks, and today she hoped to place a tracking collar on the alpha female. "Base camp. This is Lisa. I'm about 2 miles from the den site. Any movement on the radio trackers?" She spoke into her communication device. Greg Phillips's voice crackled through after a moment. "I'm showing the pack moving east along the river. They made a kill about an hour ago, so they should be resting soon. Perfect time for a dart approach." "Copy that. I'll radio when I'm in position." Lisa moved through the forest with practiced ease. 8 years of field research had taught her how to place her feet silently, how to use the wind direction to mask her scent, and how to predict wolf behavior. Her tranquilizer gun was loaded and ready in its holster at her side. Unknown. To Lisa, a drone the size of a hummingbird hovered 300 feet above her, recording every movement and transmitting the data to the alien vessel in orbit. "Commander, look at this," Kelvon said, displaying the live feed. "This human female is alone in predator territory. She carries only minimal equipment and a small projectile weapon." Zartul watched with growing fascination as Lisa skillfully navigated the difficult terrain. "What is she pursuing? A pack of carnivorous quadrupeds? They hunt in coordinated groups and can easily overpower a single human. Yet she deliberately approaches their territory. After 2 hours of careful hiking, Lisa reached a small ridge overlooking a clearing by the river. Below, she could see the wolf pack resting after their meal. The alpha female lay slightly apart from the others, cleaning her paws. Lisa slowly removed her tranquilizer gun and checked the dosage. The dart contained just enough sedative to immobilize the wolf for 30 minutes without causing harm. She would need to work quickly once the animal was down, attach the collar, take blood samples, record measurements, and retreat before the sedative wore off. She took careful aim and squeezed the trigger. The dart flew true, striking the alpha female in the flank. The wolf jumped up with a yelp, alerting the rest of the pack. They scattered into the trees as their leader stumbled, fought against the sedative for several seconds, then collapsed on her side. Lisa immediately began her descent toward the wolf, moving quickly but carefully down the steep slope. Base camp, successful hit on the alpha female. I'm approaching now for collar placement. Pack has dispersed, but probably not far. Keep an eye on those tracker signals and warn me if they start to circle back. Copy that, Greg replied. You've got about 25 minutes before that sedative wears off. Be careful down there. In orbit, the alien observers watched in stunned silence. The human has deliberately incapacitated the predator with some kind of chemical weapon, Kelvon reported. Now she approaches it directly. Monitor closely, ordered Zartul. This behavior is unprecedented. The aliens watched as Lisa knelt beside the sedated wolf, quickly attaching the tracking collar, drawing blood samples, measuring the animal's length and weight, and checking its overall health. She worked with confident efficiency, showing no fear despite the obvious danger. This human shows remarkable knowledge of the predator's biology, noted Kelvon. She is not killing it. She is studying it. Even more unusual, Zartul replied. To risk oneself merely for information gathering. Lisa finished her work and retreated up the slope just as the wolf began showing signs of recovering. She watched from a safe distance as the alpha female stumbled to her feet, shook herself, and trotted into the trees to rejoin her pack. Base. Camp collar is placed, samples collected, all measurements recorded. The new equipment is working perfectly. Signal coming through? Crystal clear, Greg confirmed. That's our 4th successful collar this month. The Foundation will be thrilled. Now get yourself back to camp before dark. Weather report shows storms moving in. On my way. And Greg? Let's head out tomorrow to check those bear traps. The grizzly population survey is already behind schedule. On the alien vessel, Zartul's translator algorithm processed the human communication and displayed the results. Bear traps? They are deliberately pursuing an even larger predator tomorrow. Kelvon's voice contained unmistakable alarm. Zartul's scales shifted to a deep purple of concern. Continue observation. Dispatch additional drones to monitor other human settlements. We must understand how this species has become dominant despite their physical limitations. The commander turned away from the viewing screen and dictated his first official report to the Galactic Council. We have discovered a planet where the apex predators are hunted by seemingly weaker creatures who possess advanced problem-solving abilities and use tools to overcome their physical disadvantages. These humans do not merely survive alongside predators, they track, study, and sometimes kill them. Exercise extreme caution. We may have discovered the most dangerous species in the known galaxy. The day aliens discovered Earth, the planet where apex predators hunt apex predators. Part 2. The Observation. 3 Earth weeks had passed since the stellar seeker first entered orbit around the blue planet. Commander Zartul stood in the newly established observation center on Earth's moon, a hidden base carved into the dark side where human detection was impossible. Around him, dozens of alien scientists analyzed the flood of data coming in from thousands of tiny drones scattered across Earth. Our understanding grows daily, Commander, said Science Officer Kelvon, approaching with the latest reports. But so does our concern. Zartul's scales shifted to a thoughtful blue-green shade. Explain. Kelvon gestured to the main display wall where videos from various locations around Earth played simultaneously. We initially believed the predator hunting behavior was limited to small groups of specialists, perhaps for scientific purposes as we first observed. We were wrong. The screen zoomed in on several different scenes. Humans in ocean vessels pursuing massive water creatures, groups trekking through jungles with various weapons, others climbing frozen mountains where flying predators nested. They seek out dangerous environments and creatures deliberately? Zaratul asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes. And what's more disturbing, many do it for recreation, for enjoyment. Kelvon's voice contained unmistakable disbelief. They call it sport hunting or adventure tourism. Security Officer Vexnar joined them, his more heavily armored body reflecting the harsh lighting. Commander, you need to see the military assessment. With a gesture, Vexnar changed the display to show human military training exercises from around the planet. The aliens watched in silence as Navy SEALs performed underwater operations. Army Rangers conducted jungle warfare training, and Special Forces units from various nations demonstrated survival skills in extreme environments. They deliberately train in the most hostile conditions their planet offers, Vexnar explained. Desert, Arctic, deep ocean, high altitude. They push their physical limitations beyond what should be possible for their species. Zartul's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of deep agitation. The Galactic Council must know the full extent of this behavior pattern. Continue gathering data. I want a complete analysis of their military capabilities and threat assessment within one planetary rotation. Far below the alien observation post in a swampy region of Louisiana, Lieutenant Frank Daniels led his 6-man team through murky water that reached their chests. The night was pitch black, the air thick with humidity and the sounds of insects and frogs. Remember, this is a stealth extraction, Frank whispered to his team over their secure communication system. We get to the target, retrieve the package, and exit without detection. Satellite shows hostile forces patrolling 2 clicks north of the extraction point. In reality, those hostile forces were fellow Navy SEALs playing the opposition in this training exercise. The package was a dummy representing a downed pilot who needed rescue from enemy territory. But Frank and his team treated the exercise with deadly seriousness. Their lives might someday depend on doing this right under actual combat conditions. Wilson, take point. Harris, you're on rear guard. The rest of you maintain formation. Watch for gators, Frank ordered. Water's perfect for them tonight. As if to emphasize his warning, a large ripple moved through the water nearby, the distinctive shape of an alligator's snout briefly visible in the faint moonlight. The team adjusted their route slightly, but otherwise showed no reaction to the predator's presence. As they moved deeper into the swamp, Frank noticed something odd with his equipment. The normally reliable GPS device on his wrist was showing intermittent signal disruption, and the thermal imaging scope attached to his weapon flickered occasionally. Anyone else getting equipment interference? He asked quietly. Affirmative, responded Sergeant Wilson from the front of their formation. My comms keep dropping for half-second intervals. EMI from somewhere. Frank frowned. This wasn't part of the exercise parameters. Command, this is Mako team. We're experiencing electronic interference in grid section Echo 9. Possible electronic warfare component not in the briefing? After a moment of static, the base commander's voice came through. Negative, Mako team. No electronic warfare elements in today's exercise. Nature of the interference? Intermittent GPS dropout. Thermal imaging disruption. Comm static. Comes in waves approximately 7 seconds apart. Understood. Continue mission, but log all equipment anomalies. We'll analyze when you return. Frank signaled his team to proceed, tucking away his concern. The mission came first, mysterious equipment problem second. Unknown to Frank and his team, a cloaked alien drone hovered 50 feet above them, its scanning beams passing through the forest canopy every 7 seconds, the exact interval of the interference. In the lunar observation post, Vexnar watched the human team with growing respect. They detected our scanner waves, he reported to Commander Zartul. Their equipment is much more sensitive than we anticipated. Did they identify the source? Zartul asked sharply. No, but they immediately reported the anomaly and continued their mission without breaking formation or showing stress responses. Kelvon joined them, adding, Notice how they navigate through predator-infested waters in darkness. They're not avoiding the large reptilian predators. They're simply working around them, as if they're a minor inconvenience. Most species would avoid such conditions entirely, Zartul observed, yet they deliberately train in them. There's more, Kelvon said gravely. Our analysis of their information networks reveals they possess weapons capable of destroying their entire planetary ecosystem many times over. They call it mutually assured destruction. Vexnar's scales paled. They developed planet-killing weapons against whom? Each other, Kelvon replied simply. Different factions of humans have spent decades in a standoff, each capable of annihilating the other, yet somehow maintaining equilibrium. Zartul moved to the center of the observation deck, his decision made. This changes our approach. Direct contact is too dangerous at this stage. We need more information about their psychology, their limitations, their weaknesses. What do you propose, Commander? Asked Vexnar. Specimen collection. Select individuals from different regions, different specialization groups. We will create controlled environments to study their problem-solving abilities, their adaptability, their responses to stress and isolation. The Galactic Council has strict protocols about sentient species abduction, Kelvon reminded him hesitantly. The Meek Council also has protocols about contact with potentially hostile apex species, Zartul countered. I'm invoking emergency containment procedures. This species represents a potential threat unlike any we have encountered in 20,000 years of exploration. He turned back to the screen showing the human military team still moving efficiently through the dangerous swamp. Undeterred by predators, environmental challenges, or even the alien surveillance they had partially detected. Begin selection of specimens immediately, Zartul ordered. Priority targets should include their hunters and warriors. We must understand what we're dealing with before we decide how to proceed. As Frank Daniels led his team deeper into the Louisiana swamp, successfully avoiding alligators, snakes, and other natural dangers, he had no idea that he and his species were being evaluated as the most dangerous predators the galaxy had ever known, creatures so formidable that even powerful spacefaring aliens now approached them with extreme caution. The day aliens discovered Earth, the planet where apex predators hunt apex predators. Part 3. The abduction. Alan Wright checked his rifle one last time before placing it in its case by the cabin door. The Wyoming mountains were beautiful in autumn, with golden aspens catching the late afternoon light. He had lived in this remote cabin for 15 years, ever since retiring from his job as a park ranger. At 58, he still hiked these mountains nearly every day, often tracking the local wildlife. I should be back before sunset, he called to his wife Carol, who was reading by the fireplace. Just gonna check that moose track I spotted yesterday. Carol looked up from her book. Take the emergency beacon. Storm might roll in faster than predicted. Alan patted his jacket pocket. Already got it, and my phone, though the signal up by Broken Ridge is always spotty. The truth was, Alan loved being disconnected from the world while in the mountains. The solitude, the challenge, the awareness that these forests contained creatures perfectly capable of killing him if he made a mistake. It all made him feel more alive than anywhere else. Love you, he said, leaning down to kiss Carol goodbye. Venison stew when I get back? It'll be waiting, she promised. Be safe out there. Alan stepped outside into the crisp mountain air, taking a deep breath before heading toward the tree. He left his rifle behind. He wasn't hunting today, just tracking. Besides, he carried only a small camera and his field notebook. The tracks he'd seen yesterday suggested a bull moose with an impressive rack, perfect for his wildlife photography collection. As Alan disappeared into the trees, he had no idea he was being watched. High above, cloaked in technology that bent light around its hull, Zartul's ship maintained position. 3 selection drones followed Alan's heat signature through the forest. Subject identified, reported Vexnar. Male human, isolated, entering undeveloped terrain without companions, minimal technology carrying. Optimal selection candidate. Proceed with extraction, Commander Zartul ordered. Full containment protocols. Alan had hiked about 2 miles when he first sensed something was wrong. Years in the wilderness had honed his instincts. He stopped, listening carefully. The forest had gone quiet. No bird song, no rustling of small animals in the underbrush. Something had disturbed the natural order. He slowly turned in a complete circle, scanning the trees and undergrowth. Nothing visible, yet the silence persisted. A prickle ran up his spine, the ancient warning system of a prey animal sensing a predator. Alan reached for his emergency beacon, but before his fingers touched it, a bright blue light enveloped him. He felt a strange weightlessness, then nothing at all. When Alan regained consciousness, he found himself in what appeared to be a forest clearing. Tall trees surrounded him, sunlight filtered through leaves. Birds called from branches above. But something felt wrong. The air smelled too clean, lacking the complex sense of a real forest. The bird calls repeated in the same pattern every few minutes, and when he looked up, instead of sky, he saw a curved gray ceiling with tiny lights that mimicked stars. "I'm in some kind of enclosure," he muttered to himself. A simulation. Alan had never believed in alien abductions, had actually laughed at such stories during his ranger days. Now, faced with evidence he couldn't deny, he felt remarkably calm. Professional habits took over. Observe, analyze, plan. He methodically explored his surroundings, quickly discovering the boundaries of his enclosure, about the size of a football field. The trees, grass, and small stream all looked real enough, but subtle details were wrong. The bark texture repeated on certain trees. The water in the stream made no sound as it flowed, and there were no insects anywhere. "Amateur work," Alan said aloud, wondering if whoever or whatever had brought him here was listening. "You've never actually been in a forest, have you?" In the observation room adjacent to the simulation chamber, Kelvon flicked his inner eyelids nervously. "The subject is speaking directly to us. How could he know he's being observed?" "The simulation isn't convincing him," Zartul replied. "Interesting. Most species would be in panic by now." Alan began gathering materials, sharp stones, flexible branches, vines for binding. Within hours, he had constructed a basic spear and several smaller tools. He tested the edge of the spear against his thumb, nodding with satisfaction when it drew a small bead of blood. "He's creating weapons," Vexnar noted with alarm. "From the simulation elements." "Fascinating adaptive response," Kelvon countered. "But what threat does he perceive?" "The simulation contains no predators." Zartul leaned closer to the viewing screen. "He perceives us as the threat, and he's preparing." Meanwhile, in a suburban neighborhood outside Denver, Mary Winters closed her laptop after finishing the quarterly tax reports for her clients. At 42, she had built a successful accounting business that allowed her to work from home. She stretched, glancing at the clock. Nearly midnight. Time for her nightly walk. Mary had always been a night owl, finding peace in the empty streets when most people were asleep. She pulled on a light jacket and slipped out her front door. The neighborhood was silent, streetlights creating pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. She walked briskly, enjoying the cool night air and the quiet. Mary had always been observant, noticing details others missed, a useful trait in accounting and in life. Tonight she noticed something unusual near the small neighborhood park, a faint blue glow behind the trees. Curious, Mary changed her route to investigate. As she approached the strange light, it suddenly expanded, enveloping her completely. Like Alan before her, she felt momentary weightlessness, then darkness. Mary awoke in what appeared to be a comfortable apartment. Modern furniture, working appliances, windows showing a city skyline. But like Alan, she quickly noticed the inconsistencies. The books on the shelves had no titles. The windows always showed the same view, with cars moving in repeating patterns. The refrigerator contained food that all tasted slightly wrong. Instead of building weapons, Mary systematically tested her environment. She found the invisible barriers, discovered which objects could be moved and which were fixed in place. She located the hidden panels in the walls, where soft humming sounds emerged. Most importantly, she realized the lights dimmed at regular intervals, a simulated night cycle that might indicate when her observers took breaks. In the command center, Zartul reviewed the data from both human subjects. Remarkable, he mused. The woodland male immediately prepared for conflict, while the urban female methodically analyzed her containment. Different approaches, but both displaying exceptional problem-solving abilities. Neither has exhibited fear responses beyond initial disorientation, Kelvon added. Most species show prolonged stress reactions to removal from their environment. We should place them together, Vexnar suggested unexpectedly. Their social species functions through cooperation. I'm curious how two strangers would interact in this situation. Zartul considered this. A valid experiment. Prepare to merge the simulation environments during the next rest cycle. Maintain full security protocols. As Alan constructed more tools in his forest and Mary mapped out every centimeter of her apartment prison, neither knew they would soon meet, and neither knew that their captors had greatly underestimated the human capacity for adaptability, cooperation, and resourcefulness when faced with a common threat. In Wyoming, Carol Wright reported her husband missing when he failed to return by nightfall. In Denver, Mary's assistant grew concerned when she missed an important client meeting. Search parties formed in the mountains, police filed reports, families worried. But no one suspected that two ordinary humans were about to demonstrate why their species had become the apex predators of Earth, and perhaps the galaxy. The day aliens discovered Earth. The planet where apex predators hunt. Apex Predators. Part 4. The escape. Alan woke to the sound of his simulation forest changing. The humming that always underlaid the artificial bird calls grew louder, and the light dimmed as if a cloud had passed over the fake sun. He gripped his handmade spear tightly and moved to the large oak tree he had been using as shelter. From there, he could observe without being immediately visible. The air seemed to ripple at the far end of his enclosure. Then, to his surprise, a section of the forest simply disappeared, replaced by what looked like a modern apartment. A woman stood at the edge of this new space, looking as startled as he felt. They stared at each other for a long moment. Alan noticed she held a makeshift tool of her own, a piece of metal that appeared to have been removed from furniture and sharpened against a hard surface. They put us together, the woman said finally. I'm Mary Winters from Denver, abducted 3 days ago during my evening walk. Alan stepped forward cautiously. Alan Wright, Wyoming Mountains. Been here about 4 days, I think. He gestured at her improvised weapon. Good thinking. I made some tools of my own. Mary stepped fully into the forest section, looking around with keen interest. Your simulation is more complex than mine. I had an apartment with basic furnishings. This environment has more variables. It's not very realistic, Alan replied. Whoever built it has never actually been in a forest. Mary smiled slightly. Same with my apartment. Books with no words, food with no taste. But I've been mapping everything, tracking the patterns of light and sound. Alan nodded, immediately recognizing a kindred analytical mind. The observers check in every 6 hours. There's a panel about 20 feet up that tree where they insert something, probably food or water for the simulation. Mary glanced up. Have you tried to reach it? Not yet. Been working on these first. Alan showed her his collection of tools, the spear, several stone knives, and a sling made from vine fibers. In my simulation, I found a maintenance access panel behind the refrigerator, Mary said. It was sealed, but there were lights behind. I think it might control some of the environment systems. They exchanged information quickly, comparing observations and theories. Despite being complete strangers from different backgrounds, they immediately formed an alliance based on their shared predicament. They're watching us right now, Alan said quietly. Mary nodded. Let's give them something interesting to see. In the observation center, Zartul and his science team watched the humans with growing fascination. Remarkable cooperation between strangers, Kelvon noted. No power struggle, no territorial display. Immediate information sharing and alliance formation. Vexnar seemed less impressed. They're simply recognizing mutual benefit in cooperation. Many species do this under stress. But few do it so efficiently, Zartul countered. Observe how they're already formulating plans together. On the main view screen, the humans appeared to be constructing a simple shelter together, gathering materials from both simulation environments. They worked silently now, occasionally pointing or nodding, but saving their words for when they were close together, clearly aware they were being monitored. What the aliens couldn't hear were the whispered conversations happening during this work. The maintenance panel in my apartment is our best bet, Mary murmured as they gathered branches. If we can access it, we might be able to disrupt the simulation systems. Alan nodded slightly. I can give you a boost up that tree first. If we can jam something into the feeding mechanism, it might trigger a manual override. They'll separate us if they realize what we're doing, Mary warned. Then we work quickly, Alan replied. Tonight, when the lights dim for their sleep cycle, as the artificial day progressed, the humans continued their apparent shelter building while actually preparing for their escape attempt. Mary fashioned small tools from the metal and plastic components of her apartment furniture. Alan gathered the strongest vines and branches, testing their strength and flexibility. Aboard the main ship, Commander Zartul received an urgent communication from the Galactic Council. The Council has reviewed our preliminary findings, he informed his officers. Earth has been classified as a Class 1 threat world. Kelvan's scales paled. Only 5 other planets in the known galaxy have that designation. The Council orders immediate cessation of direct contact studies, Zartul continued. We are to withdraw to observation distance and prepare a full report. Vexnar gestured toward the screen showing the humans. And the specimens? Zartul hesitated. Protocol dictates memory suppression and return to their original locations. Is that wise? Vexnar asked. These creatures have demonstrated remarkable problem-solving abilities. Memory suppression might not be effective. Before the commander could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. On the screen, the simulation environments flickered as power fluctuated. What's happening? Zartul demanded. A technician worked frantically at the controls. The humans have accessed a maintenance node. They've overridden the feeding mechanism and created a feedback loop in the environmental systems. In the simulation, Alan stood on Mary's shoulders, his arm deep inside the panel he had discovered high in the tree. Mary had correctly guessed that the panel would contain similar technology to the one in her apartment. Using the tools they had crafted together, Alan managed to cross-connect several glowing components. The lights in the simulation flickered violently. The humming sound rose to a painful whine. Sections of the forest and apartment began to disappear, revealing the metal walls of their true confinement. Emergency separation, Zartul ordered. Seal the containment areas. Too late, the technician replied. They've triggered a cascade failure in the primary simulation grid. Automatic safety protocols are engaging. Alan helped Mary climb through the opening that had appeared in the ceiling of their enclosure. They found themselves in a narrow maintenance corridor with strange symbols on the walls and pulsing lights guiding the way. Emergency systems activated by the failure. This way, Mary said, pointing toward a larger door at the end of the corridor. They ran together as alarms wailed around them. The door slid open automatically as they approached, revealing what was unmistakably a hangar bay containing several smaller vessels. We need to find a way off this ship, Alan said, looking around quickly. Mary pointed to a small craft separated from the others. That one's different. Looks like it might be a shuttle or escape pod. As they raced toward it, the ship's systems continued to malfunction around them. Doors opened and closed randomly. Lights flickered on and off. The aliens, focused on containing the cascade failure, temporarily lost track of their human specimens. Auxiliary research module is being separated from the main vessel, a technician reported to Zartul. Emergency protocols are in effect. Humans? The commander demanded. Vexnar checked another screen and hissed in alarm. They're inside the research module. They've accessed the scout ship. Impossible, Zartul breathed. How could they understand our technology so quickly? Kelvan, despite the crisis, couldn't help but sound impressed. They didn't need to understand it. They simply recognized patterns and exploited vulnerabilities, just as they do when hunting their world's predators. In the scout ship, Alan and Mary found themselves surrounded by alien technology. However, the emergency systems had activated what appeared to be a simplified interface, glowing symbols that seemed to represent basic functions. It's designed for emergency use, Mary realized. The symbols are universal: direction, power, communication. Alan studied the controls, like an emergency exit on Earth, designed to be intuitive under stress. Working together, they managed to activate the small craft just as alien security forces reached the hangar bay. The scout ship's systems engaged automatically, separating from the research module and activating a pre-programmed emergency return protocol, heading directly for the nearest habitable planet, Earth. On the command deck, Zartul watched with a mixture of alarm and reluctant admiration as the scout ship broke away, carrying the humans back to their home planet. "Should we pursue?" Vexnar asked. Zartul was silent for a long moment. "No. The Council has classified their world as a maximum threat. We follow protocol and withdraw." He turned to his science officer. "Kelvon, prepare a complete report for the Council. They need to understand exactly what kind of species we've discovered." As the scout ship streaked toward Earth, Alan and Mary looked at each other with the shared understanding of two predators who had successfully turned the tables on those who had thought to cage them. The day aliens discovered Earth, the planet where apex predators hunt apex predators. Part 5. The Warning. The stolen alien scout ship streaked through Earth's atmosphere, its advanced technology automatically adjusting to prevent burnup during wine entry. Inside, Alan and Mary braced themselves against the vibrations, watching through the viewing portal as blue sky replaced the blackness of space. "Can you control where this thing is heading?" Alan asked, studying the glowing symbols on the control panel. Mary shook her head. "I think it's on a preset course. These indicators are changing rapidly." She pointed to pulsing lights that seemed to be counting down. "My guess is it has an emergency landing protocol." The ship began to slow as it approached the Rocky Mountains, in Colorado. Its cloaking technology engaged automatically, making it invisible to Earth's radar systems. With surprising gentleness, the craft settled into a remote valley, coming to rest in a small clearing surrounded by pine trees. "We're about 60 miles west of Denver," Mary said, recognizing the mountain range. "Remote enough that no one will find the ship quickly." As if responding to her words, the ship's systems initiated a new sequence. A holographic display appeared over the control panel, showing what looked like a countdown. "I think it's going to self-destruct," Alan said grimly. "They wouldn't want their technology falling into our hands." Mary quickly studied the alien symbols. "We need to get the data first. Look here." She pointed to what appeared to be a data storage unit. "This might contain information about them, their technology, maybe even their plans." Working quickly, they managed to extract what looked like a crystalline storage device. As soon as they removed it, the ship's entry hatch opened with a soft hiss. "Time to go," Alan said, grabbing the device and several small tools from the ship. They hurried away from the craft, climbing a ridge that offered some protection. When they looked back, the ship was glowing with a strange blue light. A moment later, it simply dissolved, leaving no trace of its existence except for a small, scorched circle on the ground. "What now?" Alan asked, holding up the crystal they had salvaged. "Now we warn people," Mary replied. "But carefully. We need to get this to someone who will take it seriously without causing a panic." They hiked through the mountains until reaching a small town, where Mary was able to contact a college friend who worked at a technology company. Within hours, they were in a private laboratory in Denver, where the alien data crystal was connected to specially isolated computer systems. "It's incredible," said Dr. Paul Herrera, the computer scientist Mary had contacted. "The storage density alone is beyond anything we've developed, and the interface technology is adapting to our systems." The crystal contained vast amounts of information, star charts, biological data about Earth species, and most importantly, records of the alien observations of humans. As Dr. Herrera worked to translate and secure the data, Alan and Mary were taken to a secure military facility, where they briefed Admiral Diane Reeves on their experience. "Let me get this straight," the Admiral said, looking at them skeptically. "You were abducted by aliens, escaped from their ship, stole one of their vessels, and brought back their data storage device?" "Yes, ma'am," Alan replied simply. "And, based on their reaction when we escaped, I believe they consider humans to be extremely dangerous." Admiral Reeves turned to her aide. "Get me the Secretary of Defense. Now." Within days, a classified task force was assembled, combining military, scientific, and intelligence resources. The data from the crystal was gradually decoded, revealing the alien designation of Earth as a Class 1 threat world. "They're afraid of us," Dr. Herrera explained during a briefing, displaying translated documents on a screen. "According to their classification system, we are considered one of the most dangerous species they've ever encountered." "Because we hunt predators?" asked a general. "Not just that," Mary said. "It's our combination of traits. We have the intelligence of an advanced species but maintain the aggressive survival instincts of apex predators. We deliberately seek out challenges and dangerous environments rather than avoiding them. And we didn't panic when captured," Alan added. "We adapted, analyzed, and overcame. That shocked them." As governments worldwide were quietly informed about the situation, debates raged about how to prepare for possible future contact. Some argued for massive military buildups, others for attempting peaceful communication if the aliens returned. Meanwhile, light years away, Commander Zartul presented his final report to the Galactic Council. The massive chamber fell silent as the evidence was displayed. Humans hunting dangerous predators for sport, training in extreme environments, developing weapons of planetary destruction, and most recently, escaping from supposedly secure alien containment. "In all our exploration history," Zartul concluded, "we have never encountered a species with this combination of intelligence, adaptability, and predatory instinct. Humans are not merely capable of defending themselves. They actively seek out challenges to overcome. They do not avoid danger, they prepare for it. They do not fear predators. They become better predators themselves." The Council voted unanimously to establish a quarantine zone around Earth's solar system. Warning beacons were placed at the system's edge, broadcasting in all galactic languages. "Approach with extreme caution. Class 1 threat world. Indigenous species. Humans. Apex predators that hunt apex predators." One elder counselor added a final note to the official record. "In our thousands of years exploring the galaxy, we have learned that most intelligent species evolve by becoming specialized and moving beyond their primitive survival instincts. Humans are the exception. They have maintained their predatory nature while developing intelligence and technology. This combination makes them uniquely dangerous. They have the tools of civilization but the heart of a hunter. We would be wise to leave them alone." Back on Earth, 6 months after their return, Alan sat on the porch of his cabin in Wyoming. Carol brought him coffee and sat beside him, following his gaze to the night sky. "Do you think they'll come back?" she asked quietly. Alan considered this. "Not soon. I think we scared them pretty thoroughly." He smiled slightly. "But eventually, curiosity might overcome caution. It's in the nature of explorers. And when they do, then we'll be ready." Alan glanced at the satellite phone on the table beside him, his direct line to the newly formed Extraterrestrial Intelligence Response Division. After all, that's what we humans do best. We prepare, we adapt, we overcome. Across the country, in her Denver apartment, Mary Winters made a similar observation to Paul Herrera, who had become both her colleague in analyzing the alien data and something more personal over the months of working together. "The funny thing is," she said, looking up from the star chart they were studying, "they thought they were observing us, but in the end we learned more about them than they learned about us." Paul nodded. "That's the human advantage. We're not just predators, we're curious predators. We don't just hunt, we study. We don't just kill, we understand." As both Alan and Mary watched the stars that night from different parts of America, they shared the same thought. Humanity had earned its fearsome reputation in the galaxy not through conquering superior forces, but simply by being what they had always been. A species that never stopped challenging itself to overcome greater and greater obstacles, including now the vastness of space itself. Throughout the galaxy, other species would come to know Earth by its warning beacon. Here dwells the most dangerous predator, the one that hunts other predators. Approach at your own risk.